Recording this afternoon's session. And it looks like Sharon already turned that on. Thank you. If you have questions, please put your questions in the Q&A box and we will address them as they happen. Okay? So without further ado, my name is Jane Stewart. I'm the Associate Director of the Ohio University PTAC, and my office is located at Lakeland Community College. And joining me is my colleague, Sharon Hopkins. Sharon, would you like to say a few words?
Good afternoon. I'm glad everyone was able to make it today. So Jane, back at you. We might as well get started. We got an hour, so we might as well get this underway.
Okay, we got a lot to cover. So our agenda for this afternoon, what is SAM? Why do you have to be registered in SAM? How to do it, where to find help, and what to be aware or beware of. First off, I want to make sure that everybody understands SAM, the System for Award Management, is an absolutely free database that vendors wanting to do business with the federal government or access federal grants register in. There are many companies out there who would be more than happy to take at least $600 away from you, so they do your SAM registration for you. It is not difficult. You truly do not need to pay somebody to do the SAM registration for you. If you need assistance, that's why PTAC is here, and we can help you get through the process at no cost. So what is SAM? SAM is the System for Award Management. It is the official U.S. government website where businesses can register to do business with the U.S. government. The most important part is that you will be assigned a cage code after you register, which is a five-digit alphanumeric code that identifies your company to the government. Why do you need to register? Well, if you want to bid on a federal contract, you need to be in SAM. If you want to apply for any type of a federal assistance program, you need to be registered in SAM. So for the first time user, well begun is half done. Get prepared before you get started. The first step is to obtain a login.gov account, and we'll get more into that. You also are required to have a Dun and Bradstreet number. Dun and Bradstreet provides the DUNS numbers for businesses for government contracting purposes at no cost. Here's the website that you want to use, fedgov.dnb.com/web form. It's very important that you realize the DUNS number takes about 72 hours to become active after you start the registration. The information that's required, name, address, the chief executive officer, owner, the legal structure, pretty standard business type information. Make sure that the information you enter is correct. So when you get to SAM, you don't have any problems. It's also important to remember that Dun & Bradstreet and SAM both require a physical address. You cannot just use a PO box. You can have a PO box as your mailing address, but you also are required to have a physical address in your SAM registration. So here is what the website looks like. if you're at any other website, you're at the wrong one. Make sure you are at SAM.gov. I encourage people to not use a Google or a Yahoo browser to go to SAM, because more than likely you're going to get a lot of hits for commercial companies wanting to charge you a fee to take care of your SAM. Type SAM.gov right into the address bar and you should be okay. So the first step, let me go back. The first step is to create that login.gov account. And that gets started by selecting this button, login. You're going to want to create a new account, and you have to pay special attention to the password. Also, once you start to create a new account and enter your email address, they will send you an email that you have to confirm before you can move forward. The password, yes. Yes, Sharon?
Jane, we had a question. Someone was asking if Firefox was also compatible with SAM.gov.
I don't know. I do know that Google Chrome works quite well. I don't know about Firefox. I'll have to test that out. So after you've confirmed your email address, you have to create a password. And I think I always forget what I'm typing. So I like to click this show password. And then that way you'll see exactly what you're typing in rather than just the little asterisks. When you're creating your password, it has to be uppercase, lowercase, numbers, and special characters. And these 4 bars underneath the password box, they all have to turn green before the password will be accepted. Write your password down. We all have so many usernames, passwords, codes, pins, whatever. It's hard to keep up with them. It is much easier to try to write it down or put it in your computer or whatever than to try to reset the password. Then continue. SAM or login.gov uses a 2-factor authentication system. So the next step is to select how you want to get that other form of authentication. Most of the companies that I deal with, they will select phone. And what happens is once you log into SAM, or log into login.gov, they will text you a code that you then have to enter into the system before you're allowed access. If you have a security key or other authentication application, you can use that. Selecting phone is probably the easiest because we all carry our cell phones around with us all the time. So here's an example of a code. Hit submit. The code is only valid for 10 minutes. So if you get waylaid, if you get distracted, you'll probably just have to request another code. So the information that is required in SAM. I always encourage folks to have this information ready before they get started. It will make the process a whole lot easier. First off, you'll need your DUNS number. And remember, it takes 72 hours for that DUNS number to become active after you get it assigned. Taxpayer information. You need your TIN or your EIN. And I encourage people to pull out your tax records to make sure that you get all of the information correct. You'll need your banking information, your checking account number and your routing number. Most frequently, government contracts are paid via electronic funds transfer. Your banking information is associated with your CAGE code, so a government agency always knows how to get you paid. You will need to have information about the goods and services that your company provides. You'll need NAICS codes as well as product service codes. The NAICS codes identify the type of company a business is. And then the product service codes identify the more specific product or service that a company offers. And we'll look at those a little more in a few slides. So once you get past that initial part, then you're going to create an individual account. Now you're going to start entering all of the information, all of your user information, name, phone. Whoop, I'm sorry. You'll create a username. And then there will be security questions. The security questions are required in the event that you lose everything else and you can't access your record. They'll go through your security questions. You select the drop-down menu and pick the question that you want and then enter the answer. Again, write this down. It's easy to forget. We all have way too much on our plates. So please make sure that you write these questions down and the answers. The next part is the user agreement, the terms and conditions. Read that through, next, move on. Okay. So remember, this is for a first-time user when you're creating a brand new entity registration. You're going to click on the entity registration, and then it will take you through a list of the different sections of the SAM registration. Overview, purpose of registration, core data, reps and certs, points of contact, and then you submit. It's every time you complete a section, you'll get a green check mark, and then you'll be allowed to move on. So down here at the bottom, there'll be a start registration button to click, and that'll get the fun going. So the first part is purpose of registration. You need to select the type of entity you are, and then why are you registering in SAM? If you want to be able to bid on federal contracts, you need to select the first option. If you only want to apply for federal grants and that type of financial assistance, then you select the second option. You know, if you're interested in the shuttered venue program, or I can't think of another one right now, but that would be the one that you would select. And it's also important to note that if you're applying for federal assistance, you have to complete all the sections in SAM, but if you only want to apply for federal assistance, the assertions portion is not included or not required for federal assistance. Okay. So once you complete each section, you'll come to a review page, and then you make sure all the information is correct. Then you can move on. So look for those little green check marks. If there's an error, generally it will be up here in red, that and it will indicate what part you skipped or entered the information incorrectly, whatever the problem might be. Okay. So the next part is the core data and the entity information. This is where you're going to enter that DUNS number and your company name and information. It has to match very, very, very closely to what Dun and Bradstreet has. So again, make sure that you keep a copy of your Dun and Bradstreet information so you can enter it in here. So you can enter it in here correctly. And again, SAM will not accept a post office box. You have to have a physical address. So once the information is validated that you enter for your address and company name, once that's validated with Dun and Bradstreet, then you can continue. There are the biggest reasons for the Dun and Bradstreet validation to fail is there's some discrepancy, and it can be as minor as instead of writing out street, you used the abbreviation ST. You know, it can be very minor differences, so make sure you have exactly what you gave Dun and Bradstreet. The next part is you need to create a, you enter your business start date and you create an MPIN. My circle got off position, unfortunately. The MPIN is a 9-digit, exactly 9 digits, no more, no less, alphanumeric code that will allow you to access other government systems. So again, write it down, 9-digit alphanumeric. Physical address, your mailing address, and then you'll enter your tax ID. Select your, select whether you use a social security number or a TIN, enter the TIN, then you select next. So this is another common hiccup page. The taxpayer information has got to be identical to what the IRS has on file for your company. If once you complete the first step in the process is your information will go through IRS validation. And if it doesn't pass, you won't get a reason why it doesn't pass. So most often there's something in the address that is not identical, or maybe the person executing consent that you've identified here isn't the same as who actually signs your tax returns. So that's why I said earlier, make sure that you double check with your tax documents, pull them out to make sure that you are entering the information identically to what they have. For the tax year, you want to enter the most recent year. Not everybody has done their 2020 taxes yet. So, and that's fine. It's okay if you have to enter 2019. Okay. So the next page will be the cage. Like I mentioned earlier, the cage is a 5-digit alphanumeric that identifies your company. If you're a first-time registrant and you've never had a cage code before, simply answer no, that you don't have one, and they will assign one. If so, let's say a really, really long time ago, your company did have a cage code. You don't want to try to get a new one. You want to try to find out what that old cage code is and enter it in here. Okay. Next is general business information, the type of company you are, if you're a manufacturer, and your socioeconomic categories: veteran-owned, woman-owned, minority-owned. There is no formal certification for a small business. By identifying in SAM that you're a small business, and based on the NAICS codes and your annual revenues and number of employees, that's how you're identified as a small business.
Jane,
Yes.
we have a question. Yeah, we have a question back on the cage code.
Mm-hmm.
Someone asked, what if your cage code was from a previous owner?
As long as it is the same company, the cage code is assigned to the business, not to the owner. So if it's the same company, you still want to maintain that same company. If there is any government contracting history, you want that to carry over to the current company as past performance. Does that make sense?
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
We just had another one pop up. Hang on, let me look.
Okay.
Okay, they say, this is very specific. Their DBA is the same, so they're doing business as, but the legal corporation is different.
I'm not sure. I think that I would probably contact the federal help desk and get clarification on the best way to approach that. What do you think, Sharon?
I think that's very good advice.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Yep. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, so the next part is the electronic funds transfer page. Routing number, account number, a phone number for your bank, and the remittance address is in the event that electronic funds transfer is unavailable, where to send a check. So you're going to enter your company name and address. Oh, and don't forget, up here is a little question about, do you accept credit cards as a method of payment? If you do, I think it's very important that you select yes. Government purchases that are under $10,000 can be made with a credit card without going through a formal bidding process. They don't have to put out a formal notification. They can simply select a vendor, buy what they need, pay with a credit card, and they're done. So if your business lends itself to accepting credit cards, I would encourage you to do so. So next comes executive compensation. I have never had a company I've worked with answer yes to this question. It's 80% of your annual gross revenues from federal contracts. And do you have 25 million or more in gross annual revenues from federal contracts? I usually tell my clients, well, not yet. Okay, the next page or the next part is the proceedings part. Does your company are there any criminal proceedings? Do you currently hold a government contract? Just, read the questions and answer them. And if you can have your SAM information made public on the SAM website. I would encourage you to say yes to that question, to include your non-sensitive information. It will not include your banking information and things like that, just your general public information that you want buyers to have. Sharon?
And Jane, when you say that, you are really talking to companies that are interested in contracting with the government or subcontracting to prime contractors, correct?
Yes, but this section is still part of what, if you're registering for just financial assistance, this is still included in the information for that leg of the registration. But it is much more for a company wanting to do.
Would you recommend that they that somebody just wanting the financial assistance make their information public?
I don't think it would hurt anything, but you don't have to. This is purely optional. Okay.
Okay.
So that finishes up core data. And as you can see, after every section, when it's completed correctly, you move on to the next section, or you get the little green check marks, you have your review, and then you can save and continue. So this part, the assertions, are only if the organization is interested in federal contracts. This is where a company adds their goods and services. So the first part of it is the NAICS code. The NAICS code, North American Industrial Classification System. This is where these are the codes that identify the type of business a company is. My go-to website is census.gov/NAICS. So you go to the NAICS code website, look up all the codes that apply to your company. You can have more than one. Just make sure that they are all relevant to each other. I think when companies have a huge range of unrelated codes, that can be a bit of a red flag. And also, if you are a reseller or distributor, the federal government does not use those NAICS codes. They don't buy from those NAICS codes. They're the 41, 42, 43 codes. You want to use the manufacturing code. Even if you're not the manufacturer, use the manufacturing code. I hope that makes sense. So let's say that you are a distributor of fasteners. Don't use the distributor code or the reseller code. Use the manufacturing code that identifies that you manufacture fasteners. I hope that makes sense. So you simply enter your code, you hit search, and then you hit the add button to add the code to your to the lower section. These codes are not written in stone. You can and are expected to come in here periodically to update your NAICS codes. If you change what you're doing, if you've added something, you want to make sure that your NAICS codes in SAM represent what you do. And then below this section is an area where you can enter the product service codes. Remember, those are the codes that identify the specific products and services that you offer. Here's the website to look them up, and then you enter them in the same way that you enter the NAICS codes. You'll also need to select a primary code for your NAICS codes. If you have several, you have to pick one to be your primary. And remember, this part is only for federal contracts. The size metrics. You need to enter your annual receipts and the number of employees. All of those NAICS codes that you just entered, they all have a annual revenue or a number of employee associated with it that determines if you're a small business or a large business, or other than small business is actually how it, the wording that they use. So here's the website that you can go to. There is tons of information there about the small business size standards. And you only need, most companies really only have one location, and if that's the case, you only need to enter your receipts and your employees in the first part of it. EDI is electronic data interchange. Very few small businesses utilize this. It's more common in very large companies. So I've never worked with a client who uses EDI. So the next section is the disaster response. If your company provides a product or a service that would be utilized in the event of a Katrina type event or some other natural disaster, the government agencies will look in the disaster response registry for companies that can help with the cleanup or getting resources going, whatever might be needed. Often though, they will try to use businesses that are located right there in the area. So if you're interested, if you're a construction company or some type of a company that can assist with the disaster, make sure you fill out this section. Okay, that ends that section, the assertions. That's the only section that if you're applying for federal grants that you don't have to complete. The rest of it is required. So the representations and certifications is the section where you identify various aspects of your company. These are the rules and regulations of doing business with the federal government. There are 42 questions that make up this section, and they include some topics like, are you owned by a common parent or a foreign government? Has there been any legal activity with the business? Do you provide products that come from countries that utilize child labor? Do you have an affirmative action plan? Do you provide satellite services? And a whole lot other more fun questions. So read those questions carefully, answer them, but don't overthink the question. Just the majority of them just do not apply to a small business. I mean, how many small businesses launch satellites after all? So read the question, answer it, and move on.
Jane, we do have a question. Someone has asked, what is a common parent?
If you're owned by another company, so let's say that you are a division of a large business, you have to identify who you're owned by. That answers your question. So all these fun questions, and if you have any, well, you should have an interest in getting more information. These are the websites that you want to go to get the full text of all of the FAR clauses, federal acquisition regulations, and then Code of Federal Regulations. These clauses are in every government contract I've ever seen. So you want to make sure that you answer all of these questions carefully, and you understand what you're committing your company to. At the end of the representation and certification section, there is a little box that you need to check to state that you have read all of the FAR clauses that are included in the reps and certs section. Okay, if you're only applying for financial assistance, there is an extra page in the reps and certs that you have to answer. So, you know, are you applying for only federal assistance? And then there's a list of additional FAR clauses and CFR clauses that you need to make sure that you understand and comply with. So once you get through the reps and certs, which is by far the most fun part of the whole thing, you come to the points of contact. 3 areas of points of contact are absolutely required, and the rest are optional. You need accounts receivable, an electronic point of contact, and a government business point of contact. Here's what the screen looks like, and title, first name, last name. I mean, it's all pretty standard stuff, but just remember there's this nice little copy button where you can copy the information entered in a previous point of contact screen and then paste it into the next one. You have to have these 3 points of contact, but the same person can be in 2 or 3 of them. You know, especially if you're a small organization, you're not necessarily going to have lots of people that you can put in here. So it's absolutely fine to have the same person listed in more than one section. That's it. Well, it's almost that's it. If you're only applying for federal assistance, that's the end of, you're going to submit, you're going to hit the submit button and you're done. If you are applying for tax, there's one extra little section, which is the SBA supplemental page. So if you've entered a NAICS code and you meet the small business requirements, you can go to the supplemental pages and add additional information about your business. You want to do this because government buyers will utilize the small business supplemental pages to look for companies that might be able to fill a requirement. And also, in order to make a contract a set aside for a particular socioeconomic business group, they have to do market research. There has to be a minimum of 2 companies that can compete in order to make a contract set aside only for small 8A veteran, service disabled veteran, or HUBZone companies. So it's important that you fill out as much information in that section as you can. There's an area where you can enter a brief capability statement for your company. You can enter past performance, keywords that represent what your company offers. So definitely utilize this little, extra piece of potential marketing. So when you get to that page, after you finish the points of contact, then it will take you to a screen that looks like this, and you want to click on register or update your SBA profile. It will pull in information from your SAM, and then you enter additional information as needed. Then after you finish that, then you can close out the SBA supplemental page window and come back to SAM, and you do a final review of all the information that you've entered, and then you hit the submit button. So after you hit that submit button, it will start the ball rolling, and you can go back to SAM.gov and hit the check status button to see where your application is in the pipeline. You enter your DUNS number, hit search, and it will give you a check mark where it is in the process. So it checks all the different sections. It'll go through that IRS validation, like I mentioned earlier. It will go through cage validation to make sure there's not already a cage code associated with the company. And then it will become active, and you'll be assigned that cage code. It's important to know that you have to renew your SAM registration annually. You have to access it at least every 12 months for it to maintain active status. You need to go in and update it earlier if you have a change of address. And in order to change the address, you first have to go to Dun and Bradstreet and update your Dun and Bradstreet information. Then you can go into SAM and update SAM. A change of points of contacts, your entity administrator leaves, and you have to appoint a new one. If you want to add new products or services, I mean, any significant changes in your business, you need to make sure that you update SAM, your banking information, things like that. It's important to update. So if you're coming back to do an update or a renewal, when you open up SAM and you log into SAM, you'll have this additional option for existing entity registration. So you're going to click on that. Oh, I don't have the full screen. You click on existing registration, and then you're going to scroll down on that page, on that next page, and you're going to find your company in the list, click on that, and then you'll be able to click on update or renew. new requirement is the notarized letter. The notarized letter is required for all new registrations, and it gives access to the entity administrator. It gives the entity administrator access to the record, to the SAM registration. It has to be on the company letterhead, signed by the president. I mean, there's a whole laundry list of things that need to be included in this letter. There is a template on the Federal Service Desk website, and here's the website. Here's their phone number, and then the notarized letter template and very detailed instructions are at this link. Only the designated entity administrator has access to the SAM registration. If you have a change in personnel and the current admin leaves and you want to assign a new one, you're going to have to submit a new notarized letter. It's a little bit confusing, but really the instructions on the website are very, very good. There's a template available that you just copy and paste onto your letterhead, fill in all the blanks with your information, get it notarized, and then you're going to submit it to the service desk. And all those instructions are in there. If you have any problems or have questions, please don't hesitate to contact PTAC. We have been through this many, many times, so we can make it as painless as possible. Also, if you have trouble with the SAM registration in general, please, we're here to help you. All you have to do is give us a call. We can schedule a Zoom meeting and access, share the screen, access your registration, and we can walk you through step by step. So something to remember, there can be only one, and I hope somebody gets this reference, but there can be only one case code associated with one DUNS number. If you have an old DUNS number or an old cage code that is inactive, it will just cause a lot of problems if you try to get a new cage code. So if you're in a situation like that, you need to contact the Federal Service Desk or PTAC, and we can help you get that old inactive cage code associated with the current SAM registration. It sounds a lot more complicated than it actually is. So, call us. We'll help you through it. So just a couple of things to, mention again for best practices. Gather the information before you get started. You don't have to finish in one sitting, but if you do have, enough time to finish it, have all that information right in front of you to make sure that you enter it all correctly. Read the questions, but don't overthink them. Some of them sound pretty scary, but most of them probably aren't even going to apply to you. They don't generally apply to small businesses. Write down your password, your MPIN, your security questions. Don't forget, you have to renew annually. You will receive an email notification from SAM a couple of months before it's time to renew your registration. You will also receive countless emails from companies that are going to tell you that your registration is incomplete, it's incorrect, it is about to expire in 5 seconds, whatever. Be very, very cautious because they do want to charge you. Most often it's $600 and they all seem to be coming out of Florida, whatever that means. So just be careful. Make sure you're looking at an email from a .gov, a .mil, something like that. Not a, generally a .com, a whatever. It's going to be a commercial company. So please be aware. And again, contact your local PTAC if you have questions or if you need any help at all with any part of this process. PTAC is here to help you with any government contracting needs that you might have. We can help you to locate procurement opportunities through our daily bid matching program. We can assist with registrations like SAM. We can help with certifications like the veteran verification program or 8A or HubZone. We can assist with proposal development, getting a bid submitted, anything that you might need in government contracting. We're here to help you. And we are absolutely free. There are no charges for any of the services that we offer. The map here shows the Ohio University PTAC footprint. There are also a couple of other PTAC offices. There's one in Lima, down at South Point, and here over in the Youngstown area. You can find your local PTAC by going to ptac.ohio.edu. If you're not in Ohio, you can go to aptac-us.org. And the state of the Ohio PTAC website is finegovcontracts.ohio.gov. There's lots of good information there. And that is what I have. Oh, if you're interested in PTAC services, if you go to our ptac.ohio website, there's a very, very short client profile form that you can complete. It'll only take you a minute, and that will give us the information that we need to get you into our system, get you all set up, and then we can work with you. Because we are federally and state funded, we have to track the time that we spend helping clients. So, okay. So questions, comments, concerns?
So Jane, I think we probably should mention that our statewide manager, Sharon Smith, has been on our presentation today, listening in, as well as her direct supervisor, Jim Lakely. So I don't know if they would want to say hello.
That would be awesome. Let me allow them to talk. There.
Well, hello there, Jane. Fabulous presentation.
Okay.
I joined late because our conference ended just a little bit after 4, but from what I heard of it, you did a phenomenal job. The two of you tag teaming together was fabulous. I hope that all of those of you I hope that all of you that are listening will contact us if you have questions or concerns or challenges in trying to complete this. We know it's not the easiest thing to do, but hopefully with the guidance you received today, you'll be able to get through it with few problems. Again, thanks to you, Jane, and to Sharon for putting this on for our partners out there.
Thank you. My pleasure. Mr. Lapley, would you like to say a few words?
Yeah, good afternoon. My name is Jim Lapley with the Ohio Development Services Agency. I also serve as the state director of one of the PTAC's partner organizations, the Ohio Small Business Development Centers. And many folks who might be watching this webinar are particularly interested in SAM registration because of the upcoming Shuttered Venues Operators Grant Program, which is a federal grant program for performance art venues and movie theaters that have been negatively impacted by the coronavirus pandemic. We just want to make sure that folks understand, one, that the process for registering in SAM is that's required for that grant, but also that they have access to services in filling out their grant application as well. They can contact their local small business development center. You can just Google SBDC. We've got 23 different locations across the state, and we've got folks who are trained up in that program and ready and willing to assist you, also at no cost, just like the PTACs. And just like to thank our friends at PTAC for putting on this great presentation. As we know, it's going to be a benefit not just to government contractors, but for those applying for some of the upcoming government assistance programs.
Excellent. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Sharon. And thank you, Sharon. Are there any final questions?
We did have a question about the recording, and the recording for today's program will be added to the Ohio University website, and that's ptac.ohio.edu. And those of you that have attended today will also receive an email from Jane with a copy of the slides.
Yes.
So thank you very much, and I hope you all enjoyed it. Back to you, Jane.
Thank you, everybody. I really appreciate your kind attention. I hope you found this valuable. And just one last time, if you have any questions, if you need any help in any way, please reach out to us. That's why we're here. We're here to help you. We're from the government and here to help you. So thank you. I hope everyone has a nice holiday weekend if you celebrate Easter. And I hope it quits snowing where everybody is very soon. So thanks, everybody. Take care. Bye.